Hello everyone, Nightmare here, and this is Whale FM Makerspace Edition. In this show, we talk about everything and anything art and crypto in the NFT scene with designers and creators alike, otherwise known as non-fungible tokens. My guests today are Atari founder and father of the video game industry, Nolan Bushnell, and Hollywood and gaming visual effects titan Zai Ortiz, who have partnered to bring the past into the future with their debut NFT drop, the Arcade OG series, directly into your living rooms with AR. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Of course, it's fun.
We've had lots of comments over the past couple of days talking about people's love for Atari and what this could possibly be. Just kind of touching on how impactful culturally it was and what you are doing with this drop and how it affects people in different ways. So a lot of excitement already within the community.
Oh, it's wonderful to hear. Yeah, we're super excited about this. It's definitely a passion project.
Definitely. And just for full disclosure, I'm a OG gamer myself who still has his 2600 in my basement, by the way. Still pull that out now and then for my little guy to have the same experience that I did. But before we get too far down the rabbit hole, would just love for us to take a little bit of time to touch on, you guys and your backgrounds for anyone that doesn't know.
We'll start with Nolan there.
Okay. Well, I started this journey working at an amusement park when I was in college, and I'm playing games on the big computers and thinking, boy, if I could put a coin slot on this, it'd make money. But then you divide $1 million computer into 25 cents for 3 minutes, and the math didn't work. So I put it on the shelf, graduated, and 2 years later, the math did work, and sort of the rest is history.
That's quite a brief synopsis, but some amazing work that you had done with Atari, and really at a point where it wasn't known that video games had this type of market for mass adoption and to get into people's homes.
Well, the funny part about it was that people used to ask me, how does the TV station know that I turned this knob? Because the only way they ever thought of anything showing up on a TV screen was from a broadcast. The idea of a locally generated picture was totally foreign to them. I mean, this was in the creaky old days of before computers were in every home.
Yeah. So what kind of gave you that foresight that this had a bigger cultural runway than what it was initially thought to be?
Games have always adapted to the technology that was available. And whether we're talking about printing or paper for the early playing cards, clear back to the 6th century, to, plastic. And, early games were played by the knuckle bones of the animals that they'd eaten. And so the computer, to me, looked like an ultimate gaming platform, and that all we had to do is figure out how to make it happen. And it was hard. The early chips didn't want to go at video speeds. The early integrated circuits didn't like to go much faster than a megahertz. And video wanted to take information at 3.58 megahertz. So that was a little bit of geek speak of some of the difficulties we had, but step by step we were able to solve them.
Now, like your background leading into that, is that something that you thought you were going to do and push the tech field with regards to gaming, or is that something that you kind of fell into because of interest and other things that kind of the stars had aligned for?
It was really a lot of serendipity. I got the job at the amusement park for a whole different reason. I was in electrical engineering because I always liked tech and made money repairing TVs when I was 10, 11. I was a ham radio operator, which if you were uber geek in the 50s, that's what you did. and so and then, you know, my first job out of college was at Ampex in videophile, and so I really fine-tuned my video skills there. Also serendipity, you know, not a big plan. And then I went to I had a friend who worked at the AI lab at Stanford, and he took me up there, and I played Space War again, and I'd actually kind of forgotten about it, and that rekindled the whole thing.
Interesting. And then when you approach toy manufacturers and other people with the idea, what was their response?
You know, I actually didn't. I was working on this project. I wanted to get a prototype working, and as serendipity would have it, I was just describing it to my dentist, and he says, "Oh, one of my patients is in the coin-op game business in Mountain View. Let me give you his number." I called him up, and he said, "Yeah, I'd like to see it." He came over to the house, saw the prototype. I took the prototype down to his boss and signed a licensing deal. And that was Computer Space, and that was why it was, you know, published by Nutting Associates. And so again, it was kind of a series of happy accidents.
Well, we're all certainly happy that it happened, for sure. So you know, you develop the Atari, it becomes successful. At some point, it becomes an opportunity for you to pivot out to some different things. Talk me through, you know, where you were at that point, and you know what kind of your thought process was to move on to some different ventures.
Well, I actually started Chuck E. Cheese inside Atari. But after I sold to Warner, they didn't want to be in the pizza business. They thought that was really a step down. And so they sold it to me. I mean, it was talk about a great deal. And so I got all the tech and the first location and just grew it. I actually made more money on, personally, on Chuck E. Cheese than I did on Atari, just because it was, you know, had good scale and some good stuff. Oh, wow, that's the king. We did in some of the larger locations, we had a lounge show, and we had Dolly Dimples, who was a piano player, and the king, who was the big rock and roll, you know, Elvis impersonator. So that was we thought we were in show business.
Right. A brief digression. How do you feel about the Five Nights at Freddy's title, and you know how they kind of play up on the Chuck E. Cheese scenario?
Well, you know, I feel like whenever you create an icon, you kind of got to take the good with the bad. The last thing I want is to be forgotten.
Right. No, certainly no one's going to do that. So you're at Chuck E. Cheese, and then you always, you know, held gaming in high regard and thought it was a great vehicle and tool for learning, right? A lot of your projects thereafter had to do with, you know, helping to use it as a vehicle and get people more involved with various things that could help from an education perspective. And it looks like you've had a number of, you know, adventures in that realm as well.
That's right. We've got LearnUp right now, which I've got just a masterful CEO, and it's really rocking and rolling. It's going to be great. It's called LearnUp, learnup.com, and our mascot is the turnip. LearnUp the turnip. How cool is that?
Nice. And so eventually, obviously, you know, you kept with technology just because it was in your nature and your interest, and you know, you found your way here. But before we ventured down the rabbit hole of cryptocurrency and NFTs, Zai, I'd love to touch base a little bit on, you know, your background and kind of how you got to this point.
Yeah, of course. So, you know, I'm an artist by trait from as a young kid. I mean, my mom was such a great supporter of me. I've always drew, painted, and stumbled on, computers. What I had my first Atari 2600 as a child that my father brought home from Sears, and that kind of changed everything. I was always into film, television, and just what's behind the camera as a lens. And so that always fascinated me. But the one weird thing about me is that I don't really watch TV that much at all. I don't even have a TV in my house while I was growing up. And so when we got the Atari 2600, that was really the purpose for it. And putting that together and not being passive and being interactive with something changed my whole world. And going from there, and I was always fascinated by interacting with art. And that just didn't come until 20 years later when, before that, I got into 3D animation. I started in Maya in the very, very early days. I stumbled on it by accident because my school didn't even allow any students to use Maya at the time unless they were a senior, and I was just a freshman. And so I called the makers, Alias Wavefront, and I said, hey, do you guys do any training and stuff? And they were like, no, we don't. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a call back saying, hey, we're doing this little group. Do you want to drive up into Georgia? And I said, sure. I was born in New York and moved to South Florida for school. And so Georgia was just right around the corner. So I went up and I trained with these guys. I had no idea I was training with like the top, echelon people, and they were training me. And the next thing I know I was able to get a gig, and I moved to California. And the first film I was working on was Fast and Furious 2, and just kept on. I went from that to iRobot, do a bunch of films. My favorite film was Iron Man 2. Working on developing, the holograms. That was kind of I was the director of CG to house like about 250 shots and figure out kind of that technical aspect. How do you deploy this? How do you make this? How does it look real? There were so many questions around that. And so I love to problem solve. I love art with tech. I love technology. I love it all. And to have this opportunity with Nolan to kind of build his Genesis series out is like, that's amazing. That's like, can't ask for anything more to participate in that. And so, my journey as an artist is really came from the film world, and then moved into directing commercials, into owning my own animation studio, Dark Matter, bumping into Nolan and having these beautiful kind of conversations over breakfast. And we built this beautiful relationship in like 4 or 5 years, opened up a game company, started developing games. We made a game called Saint Noir, which he brought me to the deep end to really challenge my skill sets without the visuals, because I'm a visual communicator. I never really used audio to really communicate my creativity. And that game kind of challenged me, and it was fun. It was amazing. And now, like in these new drops, I won't go into detail right now, but it's like now you're pairing both. Now you have the audio and the compared to both. So thanks, Nolan, for getting me to do that, because now you got both worlds.
The thing that's great about Zai is everything he touches, we get awards for it. I mean, we got Innovation of the Year from CES. We won we were Alexa integrated, so we the Echo ecosystem, we mastered that one, and we actually think we can do a Saint Noir murder mystery streaming service where it's an interactive thing on either Amazon or Netflix. What Zai is able to do, all of a sudden I don't have constraints on wild stuff that I think is important. And Zai and I get together, and we can't have a meal together without having 20 new businesses figured out.
Yeah, it seemed, you guys had a number of collaborations. How did you guys come together and begin this partnership that's been so fruitful?
We basically, I fell in love with Zai's mind. I mean, this is a true bromance. And we used to just sit down for breakfast together. We were in the same kind of, I call it a Saturday morning breakfast club, but it was a little bit more than that. And then all of a sudden we said, "Oh shit, we should do a business together." And we raised a little bit of money and went off and rock and rolled. It was fun.
Yeah, that's us talking at Comic-Con together. That was fun. It was great times.
Yeah.
And the other photo that you showed of us, that's us having fun. That's us being lighthearted, just playing around. So,
You know what? It's funny because I have a similar picture with some of my friends, so the bromance is genuine. You could definitely see from the evidence here. So you guys have this successful track record of all these things you're doing together. Talk to me about your exposure to cryptocurrency and then ultimately the NFT scene.
Well, my heartbreak story is that a friend of mine gave me 2 Bitcoin in like 2013. And of course, I lost the passwords. And so I own 2 Bitcoins that I can't access, and it drives my wife crazy whenever it hits a new high. So, so that was the start. And I didn't take it too seriously, but then I got in. I'm kind of a math nerd, and I fell in love with the mathematics of how it worked. And so I just climbed in on a technical standpoint. And then we started playing around a little bit with NFTs. And then Zai pushed the envelope by pranking me. He pranked me by sending me an augmented reality of Pong in the aisles of the Hollywood Bowl. And I said, how in the hell did he take that machine and put it in the Hollywood Bowl with all the people around? And then finally it dawned on me that he'd just done an AR construct. And, pranking each other is really a fun part of our life.
Very cool. And Zai, how about yourself? As an artist, did you have some inclination to get involved previously, or were you kind of jostling with some different ideas?
definitely all the above, because as an artist, this is kind of this is like a freeing moment for any artist to really kind of express their art. I took the avenue by accident getting into film. It was because I loved 3D and I loved animation and arts. How I got into film was just because the software is being used for that. It wasn't because I wanted to get into film. It just kind of happily worked out. But then to look at it now and see what artists are doing, with NFTs and the possibilities and things that we haven't seen yet. That's what's crazy, is that the possibilities are just really fascinating to me, because think about it. Working for someone and then working for a studio, you're basically just getting a paycheck and doing something. And then all of a sudden the movie makes, $1 billion and 1 billion people see it, but they see your name in little print fly up in 2 seconds, But this is it's just a game changer for any artist. I just have so much respect for the space, and I just wish to just see this like grow tenfold exponentially in the next, year. And so yeah, I became an NFT collector myself, and going down the rabbit hole, staying up at 4 a.m. on Discord, and I still do it. And it's just, there's some psychology around it that's so fascinating, that there's appreciation from unique art, from one of ones to the collectibles. And so I'm kind of like in all those ranges, and someone that does art and do digital art, what you're seeing right in front of you, like those pieces, I could appreciate what goes into these pieces and how fast they're coming out with it. and the twist, you know, the stories, because I'm a storyteller, and when I love to see kind of stories come out, it's amazing. It's amazing what I'm what's unfolding. And so I'm, you know, this is the very first drop as a collector. I've kind of felt and experienced, and now this will be the first experience for me from the other side of it, in which I'm excited about.
You know, and there's one of the things that's fascinating to me is that we can kind of define what a drop is. I mean, is it a piece of art, or is it a ticket to a future that we're playing with? Is it a cipher for a story? Is it a, you know, it's really a new canvas that we can paint on, and whether it be a master class and a way to communicate with a group of people, you know, I love things that deconstrain systems. And the NFT, though it has some constraints, is amazingly liberating. Wouldn't you say so, Zay? I mean,
Oh, amazingly. I mean, because this is outside of the boundaries. Anything could happen here. So that's what fascinates me, you know. And, you know, getting into immersiveness, like I love, you know, the idea of being immersed in something, audio, visual, in AR to VR to any of the above, the metaverse, all of it together. And so to bring something like this, and then it's a great platform. The arcade is a great platform to kind of start with, because there's so much you can do with it. I mean, take it to the level where you're playing in the metaverse and beyond that. And it just, all the roadmap that we're planning out for this is super exciting. And, you know, when I was building out the collection, it's like, I want one of these. For myself, I want that, because I'm at that age where I'm like, this is nostalgia. I'm getting a feeling out of this, you know, like this is part of history. And when I realized that, you know, when I was talking to Nolan, I think next year, Nolan, is 50 years of
yeah,
Atari.
yeah.
And right there, I'm like, 50 years of Atari, man. This is like 50 years ago from the day now. It's like $100 billion industry, the gaming. And that's where it kind of like, that was the curve. That was the point where it started. Kind of amazing to think. And so, yeah, I'm excited about it all.
And you know, the OG series is the right place to start, because it's really the genesis story. It was really from whence all the rest of it came.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love all of what you guys have mentioned, especially that you know, you wanted to do this because it's experiential. It's not just something that people would look at the execution of it or just have nostalgia. It's culturally significant to us. You know, video games certainly evolved from at one point, you know, kind of being shunned by parents and you know, the greater media, and now being an accepted form of art and media within our culture, right? And so this is kind of the genesis of that becoming a cultural norm and that evolution. But likewise, you talked about, you know, the greater roadmap that you guys are building. And what I really love about, the more I learned about this drop, is how much you guys really believe in the space and are excited about what you are doing, because I think that definitely, whether it's an NFT drop or it's the guy making my sandwich, right? When the people are doing it because they genuinely enjoy what they're working with and they want to put the best product forward for people to experience because it's part of their passion, it's definitely reflected. So you touched on the roadmap. Before we get there, let's talk the Arcade OG series dropping on Makerspace. The inspiration, you know, it sounds like in part was that this was the beginning of it all. So that would make sense for it to be your first NFT drop and the beginning of your project. Is that kind of in line with what you're thinking?
Yep, very much.
Yeah, the idea was to really come out with the very first that Nolan put his hands on, and then kind of come in order to it. So computer space is the very first, and then Pong, like that one that you're just showing, there was that one of one, basically, I believe that's in the arcade museum. And that one especially, that was kind of the beginning of what Pong was and what everyone knows what Pong is in the yellow arcade cabinet. That was the tabletop.
And that was the coin neck on the side that we took off of a kiddie ride. And that's the one that filled up totally and wouldn't take any more quarters. So we kind of knew we had something that was important, but that was our test unit. We actually put it in a place called Andy Cap's Tavern on a barrel, and it was one of these places that had peanut shells on the floor and all that. It was a beer bar. And people were lined up at 10 o'clock when the bar opened just to play Pong. So that was, that was a really good initial test.
Right. So the Makerspace page right now, it's the landing page because the drop, it looks like goes live tomorrow. So it doesn't give us all of the details, but I did see on your Arcade OG series, you do have a number of the different NFTs. And if you could just walk us through a little bit on kind of a synopsis, what's going to be available, what do they represent, and some of the different mechanics, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Nolan speak on the history of them, but just in general, what you're seeing there are 5 pieces. There's 3 computer spaces and 2 Pongs. So the red one, they're all color coded based on the the series and the true. So the red one that we just saw was the Pong, and the yellow one is the arcade coin-op Pong. So those 2 are the only library of the Pong Genesis, and then there's 3 of computer space. And so we have the blue, the green, and the yellow. So the yellow is basically a primary one, is kind of the holy grail of that. Nolan designed that machine itself. It's like a unibody. It's made out of like a fiberglass material, like a liquid mold. And if you notice, I know it's not the best picture there because it's so small, but there's these cuts that happen that are so intricate inside of it that they're very sharp around the edging, and then you have this unibody thing that sticks up where the console is, and the monitor around it, that's a TV behind it, which is hiding it into this casing that's rounded. So all this, it's just fascinating, because when I was figuring all this out, I had a new appreciation for all this because I've never seen one in person. It's very hard to get to see this in person. And so to have this as a digital piece, I thought, okay, we could have a beautiful animation with audio and have Nolan's signature, which is amazing to have kind of your ticket into this universe. But what about if you could take the animation and put it on your phone and walk around it 360 and also hear the audio and see the gameplay happening on the monitor as an AR experience in your own living room. And where that kind of came from was because the red Pong is in a museum, and I'm like, no one could go physically, like no one's going to go and see it. So let's bring this into everyone's living room, wherever they want to bring it. And so that's how that kind of birthed. But there's 5 pieces. There's only 5 pieces of it, 2 Pongs and 3 computer space.
Right, and what we're looking at right now is some of the
that's an
reality
AR.
features,
That's
right?
augmented wrist straight off my phone. Yeah, and so that's the augmented. That's basically a high fidelity model with gameplay happening on the monitor. So it's really fascinating to see all that, and that's a companion with the animation. You get basically a poster that triggers the AR. So it's on the poster itself once you kind of purchase it. But there's a lot of history in this, and this one really fascinates me because Nolan modeled that on his tabletop and his kitchen table. Nolan, you should explain that. I mean, this is the very first kind of game of a coin-op commercially made being modeled on his kitchen table.
Well, I wanted it to be spacey. And so I thought, in the future, it's not going to be just in a wooden box. It's going to have, it's going to look spacey. And so I just got my clay out and started fooling around, and there were a couple of constraints. I needed to house the monitor, and I needed a control panel, and I needed one place where you could put the coin in and the coin rejector in case the thing jammed. And then I had to have a door to get into it, and so that was the back. And so I just modeled it out, and we took it to a boat manufacturer, a fiberglass guy. And he says, "Whoa, this is interesting." I knew that it had to come out of a mold. That was the hardest technical thing, because you couldn't have any things that were undercuts. And it looks like there is, but you basically, what looks like an undercut behind the console, behind the control panel, is actually not an undercut if you pull the unit out of the mold sort of base first. And once we did that, I was just so happy with the look of the thing. You know, we had a couple of technical difficulties. When we shipped it to the trade show, we hadn't made the brackets strong enough. And so when they got to Chicago for the trade show, all the TVs were actually in the bottom. They'd all ripped loose. So we had to do a complete repair job. We had 4 of them, thank God. And we couldn't get one of them to work. It had really just broken the TV and everything. So we turned it around, so with an open door showing people what was on the inside. And that was what, broken eggs make an omelet.
Yeah, I had never seen these original cabinets, and I actually thought maybe these were just vehicles made for the drop to make it look futuristic and aesthetically pleasing. The fact that these are the original blows my mind.
Yes.
Well, if you go back and watch Soylent Green, they ask for a white one to be used in their movie, and we actually did a white one for them, and I really thought we were in the big time. Hey, we were in the movies.
Right.
It looks so amazing in the film. The cinematography of that, how they kind of pan across it is unreal. Yeah.
Very cool. So the drop entails the opportunity to get one of these pieces of artwork that represent, the likeness of the very original cabinets. Some of them, or all of them, I'm not sure, but have the AR feature enabled as well, right? So you could actually put it into your living room, which is super cool, right? Here's some more footage here.
All 5 of them come with the AR experience, the arcade itself. There is other components that we're releasing as gameplay that don't come with the AR, but if you see the cabinet in the animation, comes with the AR of it. So how that came about was because, coming from the film industry, I kind of texture and high fidelity and stuff. So we also worked out a way where saved out files as GLBs, which is a metaverse file. And so so we're prepared for what we want to do beyond this drop. So just consider this almost like a ticket to the next thing. And so it's all set up to roll into the next evolution.
Right.
I'm so bad at keeping secrets, and I'm just bubbling to try to tell you guys what we've got coming next that you'll be a part of with this drop. But Zay's made me shut up, so I will be.
Well, we're known to have a minor leaks of alpha on this program, so feel free to let something slide. We won't be upset.
I'll let Zay, do that.
Okay. I did want to.
I'd get in trouble.
I did want to make mention. I did notice part of the auction components, and I'm sure you guys have a variety of them that'll be revealed tomorrow. But I believe I read that one of them actually entails an original Atari 2600 signed by you, Nolan. So that alone has me ready to do a
Yeah.
jump kick out of my window and fight someone and make sure they get the ETH lined up. So that's super cool, and I'm sure there'll be other interesting features as well.
I actually I got 5 of the first off the production line of the 2600, 5 of them, and they were in my garage, and I'm down to 2, and one of them is going to be given to one of the people. So it's probably, I'm not, we didn't really serial number them the same way that we do with the coin op, but if it did have a serial number, it'd either be 0001 or 0002.
That's amazing. Coming from a gentleman that has a power glove on his desk, believe me, that is an amazing, amazing item. So can't wait to see the auction tomorrow. I'm sure it will be very, very busy, and you guys will be very successful. But you alluded to this only being the beginning of your project, right? This was kind of your gateway in, and on your Arcade OG website, you actually highlight the roadmap of some of the things you guys have in planned and in scope. So we have the drop tomorrow, which focuses on pawn and computer space, right? And thematically, I thought it was cool. You talked about really taking something that was progressive at the time, technologically, but it's in the past, bringing it to now and really being progressive once again, and kind of moving to the future with AR and VR and NFTs and things of that nature. So that whole narrative was really, really interesting to me. And then there's progressive steps that you have here, right? Like you said, that this is the opportunity to be a part of something that you guys are going to continue to build. And now I'll let you guys speak to what else is on the docket here.
Yeah, I mean the Genesis membership, we feel like it should be automatic based on whoever purchases the Genesis series, because we're like, well, there's nothing else before this where it kind of started. So we should, make this like an elite membership for them, because there is a limited amount of supply. So, and what we want too is like, we don't want to do this by ourselves. We want help, other people helping us shape this as well. So that group will help us shape where this is kind of going. And we're planning to release, the Arcade OG Series 2 and 3 following this in the future. We just don't have no time stamps on that yet to release, but we will be coming out within the next couple of weeks. We're trying to figure out which ones we want to release that is more significant, and also frame it out properly. As doing this as our first drop, we're also learning a lot. And so we want to make sure every learning aspect, we're doing it better and better for people. And so after we release that, we want to open up the Arcade OG DAO, which is going to give us the opportunity for a lot of collaborators and gain influence there. And we plan a lot of awards for people. And the goal of that is to really, have this place where we want to bring this to the metaverse. We want people to play these games in the metaverse and be able to take their AR version of this and be able to drop this model into, Decentraland or wherever they want, and be able to kind of show it off and also play it with their avatars. And really to build this arcade scene that's bringing back the nostalgia, and also, these 3-minute, 5-minute plays that people can enjoy, and maybe where people could lease their own arcades to other people or to other places where they're making, money off their NFT there, because I think that's a great way for the community to also grow. There is also great ways of collaborations that we're in discussions with some of the top NFTs right now that are out there in the top 10. And so we feel like this could be a great opportunity to take it out also outside of just the Atari or Nolan's collection, that we could divide this and also have a branch that could also brand other NFTs out there and help them. And so we feel very strongly about this, that this could be a very, very fun way to explore, and something that we couldn't do normally, because, you know, me and Nolan always wanted to release, you know, a video game on the blockchain. And, you know, something that people don't know about us is that we've looked into this 7 years ago, and like five years ago, was it 5 years ago? Something like that. And it was right when we met. And we went down the rabbit hole of it, and we were having trouble with wallets and doing all this stuff. And we didn't really understand much about it. And then we kind of like put that to the side and started making Saint Noir. But before that, this was kind of the holy grail for us to kind of do this. And this, by putting it to the side and focusing on something else, and then coming back to more of a thought of this Genesis series, all of a sudden just triggered like, wow, this could be the game, you know, this could be a game where you actually play, and beyond that, you know, and what about if we collaborate? There's so much beautiful art out there. So I just thought this would be a great way. And to kind of end the first roadmap, you know, one of the things that I want to do is have this OG party with all the holders where we could all collaborate and, you know, have it at a special place. We have some ideas where it will be, and we want to disclose, it will be super fun. I promise you that. And we want everyone to come, because this is the foundation of roadmap 2.0. You know, that kind of like party meeting is where is going to initiate the 2.0, where this is going. So I hope everyone enjoys kind of what we're trying to attempt and understands kind of our mission, and, you know, also take into account we're kind of just treading right now. We're just kind of learning our path, and so any input is valuable from the community.
Yeah, and tomorrow it's going to be different than it was today. You know, just
right.
Know, and you know, like face to face fun, a mega conference over Zoom, that would be fun. You know, people. What we really want to do is have a community of people of goodwill who want to make the world a better place, and part of that is my mission to be an educator. And I've often felt that I know more about the game business. At least I've been there at it longer. I should know a lot of things, and I feel like I see games that kind of miss the essence of a game, that if they were just to add a few principles to it, the game would be twice as successful. They don't know that. I feel like I can teach that.
I love the idea of a broader scope, and you guys to kind of initiate that, where it's, you know, game enthusiasts, or, you know, people that have an affinity for the properties, and you guys kind of come together. Let me tag along as well, being the geek that I am, but being able to be part of it. You know, an interesting comment and discussion that's happening within our community is someone mentioned, hey, there's things like emulators, there's things like MAME, where you could do every possible iteration of a game in previous consoles. But their comment was, it doesn't have the same effect, because obviously the experience is different, but when you don't have the controllers, or you don't have the cabinet, or you don't have the social aspect, it's not the same thing. And so what I see your project doing in part is putting some of that back in. Like, you can literally use AR and see the cabinet, right? You can almost have a very textural look to it, and feel like it's in front of you. You're talking about putting machines that are playable. I believe that's the next aspect of this roadmap, right? On 75, right. Actually make these playable and have them as machines in the metaverse that people could go to a physical location. I lament all the time to my little guy. I'm like, you don't know what it was like when I used to go to an arcade. Like, it was awesome, you know? And granted, it's pretty cool that he can hop on his iPad or his Switch or whatever and play with some friends, but a totally different experience. You know, totally different experience. So in many ways, you're re-injecting a lot of that nostalgia and life into the experience. And culturally, I can really see that having a lot of traction.
Well, also, don't forget, Chuck E. Cheese was part of the arcade metaverse, or I don't know, universe in those days. And it was actually designed to give access for young kids to the arcade. Because the arcade, teenagers and 8 to 10-year-olds don't mix. And so Chuck E. Cheese was really to give the 2 to 10-year-olds the arcade experience without all the peril that hanging around teenagers give you.
Right. I would argue, though, that there's some peril for us older folks with the kids running around with their tickets in the Chuck E. Cheese, but it's a different day and age now for sure.
No question about it.
I had a really well. Let's continue to go through the roadmap. I'm getting too excited. I'm continuing to carry on. So this aspect is what really got me excited seeing this. That you're gonna, and the next level at some point, add the actual playability to these NFTs and be able to take them into the metaverse and use them.
Well, I'm with you.
Let me ask the question: what's the difference between an art gallery and a playable arcade? A playable art gallery, is that an arcade? I mean, it's just, that's kind of one of those things that we're tasting a little bit and saying, where does a gallery and an arcade mix? And so we have art. Now we have interactive art. That's an arcade, but it's also a museum. It's also a gallery.
Right. I mean, certainly there's physical arcade locations that are considered, museums and places to go and see historically significant video games, which, like we talked about in the beginning, is now considered part of our culture and our media kind of, our standard media that we look to and say, hey, this has value for what it brings culturally. Whereas, when I was younger, adults would say, hey, what are you doing, playing a video game, right? Like now it's a form of storytelling. It's, some of the most iconic pieces that we've released over the past, 50 years, right, are part of it. So I think you're absolutely right. It could represent both. But the interactive element is what really gets me excited to go there and take part for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. The only thing that's going to hold us back is the limitation on any of the technology, but everything else is game. I mean, it's just like even with the AR experience that people are looking into in this Genesis series, it's like pushed to the max. It's what your phone could handle, and it's based on the tech. Like there's a lot more that I wanted to do, and I kept on going at it. And you have to pin it back just a little bit just to make it accessible and phone to handle it. But we want to go pretty far.
There's a whole other variable, geolocation. What if we have a treasure hunt where you have to go to your local Starbucks to get the NFT? that it's a treasure hunt, and you can go into the metaverse, but you also have to be part of the physical universe, and that match together, in which you combine the metaverse and the real universe, is an interesting. I always like these things that combine two disparate things, like when two tectonic plates collide. That's where all the interesting stuff happens. That's where the earthquakes, that's where the volcanoes are. And, while they're destructive in that they're active. And I feel like when you mash together disparate things, you always get surprises.
You're giving me James Halliday vibe from Ready Player One, right? Like we're about to start the treasure hunt in the metaverse. I love it. Definitely excited about the possibilities.
Remember, in Ready Player One, the bad guy was named Nolan.
This is true. This is true, but he definitely did not have a genuine love or interest for the product, and we're in a different realm here for sure. And the last part here is,
I talked to him, and he named it as a compliment. He says, "I had to put you in somewhere," And
Oh, really? Really? Is that part of it? I didn't know that.
oh yeah, and we've known each other and trash talked each other on a regular basis. So I was complimented, and it's much better to be the bad guy than to be a non-guy.
Right, right. Apathy is the worst.
Right.
And then the last part here, you guys alluded to, guys having meetups or Zoom calls, or basically a greater community with interactivity directly with the people. So this is not a matter of you dropping something and you're on to the next. This is you're building and you're kind of developing your community that's going to go through this process with you. So love what you're doing with this drop for sure.
Well, our attitude is that everybody's smarter than anybody, and that when you get rid of your ego and are open to smart people all over the world, you always end up with a better outcome. And Zai is open, I'm open, and whenever I'm being closed, I want somebody to whack me because I want to be open to everything that's wonderful.
A couple of comments I wanted to share from the community. Number one, I've seen this like 5 times. Nolan, people want to know what's in your workshop. They think you're like the master tinkerer there and you have all kinds of treasures. So I've seen that several times. And also, people saying that it just makes sense, being that you've been so progressive and pushing the boundaries of what's possible, that you would be here in the NFT space, and possibly someone that would, develop something new that would be leveraging the smart contracts for interactivity. Obviously, you're already, exploring a lot of things, some of which you're likely not telling us about, but I think you may be one of the people, you and Zai may be one of the groups that push this thing forward.
That's my goal. As for my workshop, it's basically part electronics, part pneumatics. And I've gone deep down the rabbit hole of the echo voice environment. And so I believe that we can do NFTs that become collaborative with the Amazon Echo. So think of your NFT saying Alexa with a code name, and all of a sudden weird things happen. So we like to look at these diverse universes and mess with them. And when you mess with something, like I really think, like in my house, I probably got 10 lights and various things of colors and what have you that are all driven by echo. Why not have a NFT drive some of that? Strange things can happen.
Sounds like a little alpha. It sounds like a little something leaking right there. So I've never even wrapped my head around that. That's awesome to hear. And you just literally demonstrated what we were talking about in the community. So I love that. Here's an interesting one that I wanted to make sure we cover while we still have you. Someone had asked, what are some of the parallels you've experienced having been at the frontier of the gaming computer revolution to now being here and what's still the embryonic stages of the NFT space?
Well, I think there are 2 big things that are going on in the NFT and the crypto space right now, and that is sort of the issues around friction and proof of work versus proof of stake. For those who are not deep dive on the crypto, proof of work uses a tremendous amount of energy. Some would say wasted. Proof of stake hasn't been proven to be as secure, but it's much easier to use. And the wallets are so much easier to use than they were even a year ago. And so there's kind of a rule in commerce which says when you reduce friction, you increase usability. And we're getting to the point where usability is accessible to almost everybody.
Interesting and great perspective, definitely coming from everything that you've experienced and built. And Zay, someone wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on artist empowerment and what this means for really driving creativity in the space, specifically for people that may have been just following routes that they needed to for sustenance?
Yeah, no, I feel every artist out there that, following a paycheck or something just to make ends meet and stuff is not a fun journey as an artist. And so this is like freeing. I mean, from what I'm seeing and witnessing, it's like the ability to create your own artwork and have someone appreciate it is a whole different realm, instead of having someone tell you how to do it for a commercial or for some type of commission. It's a whole new world in that. So I'm envious and appreciative of everyone that's pushing the boundaries on the art and being able to express themselves out there in a way that others haven't had the opportunity to, for one reason or another. And now they can. I feel like even if you have the 9 to 5 job, you could do this on the side to build up for this to be a full-time thing. Like this is a great opportunity for any artist to get into the space, to express themselves. Even it doesn't have to be about money too. It could just be about expression.
Right.
So this is fun. I'm all arrows have been pointing me towards this for months, and it's like it's rejuvenating to kind of every time when I jump into it, it's like I get giddy like a kid. And it's like almost like when I first started finding digital tools as an artist, like Maya or a paint tool in an Apple II. I feel like this is like has become that for me again. Like it has inspired me as an artist to think about myself differently and appreciate myself differently of my skill sets, when before it was more like, every artist has its ups and downs. What am I doing this? How am I doing this? Am I a good artist? Am I not? And you question yourself sometimes. I think this is a great way to express and get that validation. And it's fun. On top of it, it's a journey, and a lot of times the journey is the most fun part. The beginning and end, it's over or it starts. It's the journey. So that's why we're here in the middle of this, and this is the fun part for me right here.
Yeah. And if I get a little esoteric and philosophical for a minute, what we're doing right now is we're participating in the translation from atoms to bits. Art was strictly atoms up till now, and now it's becoming more and more bits, and it's happening everywhere. I used to have a huge selection of CDs. I don't have any anymore. I'm totally bit centric for my music right now. Think of esports. Sports used to be atoms. There were balls and there were features and there were players and there were helmets. Atoms. Now if you're a good video game player, you can go into esports and have an equivalent experience with but very different, so that if you're a crappy basketball player, it doesn't matter. If you're a great Call of Duty player, all of a sudden you are enabled as a competitive person. And esports allows people who were maybe not the top of their game on Call of Duty, but appreciate a master player. And so this translation from atoms to bits and being part of it, I think is kind of exciting. And it's part of this whole area of the universe and the metaverse. And where do you want to play?
Wow. Like it's not often my mind is blown here with concepts and things shared, but it's happened a couple of times during this interview. So you guys are amazing, and I can't imagine what else you have in store for everyone. I've kept you a long time, so thank you for hanging with us. If you don't mind, I have a couple more questions that the community wanted me to ask you guys, and we'd love to run them by you. One person would like to know from both of you, what would be one of your favorite 2600 games, and what would be one of your favorite modern video games?
Wow. Well, my favorite game is actually Go. In Chinese, it's Wei Qi. And in Japanese, it's Ego. But Atari is actually a word from Go. And so that's still my favorite game, but it's a board game. And now you can play it online. I have friends that I play with on a regular basis all over the world. But in terms of my favorite arcade game, it probably is a toss-up between Breakout and Tempest, with a follow-up of Centipede.
Nice.
I think in terms of the 2600, I really like to play Tank, and I still like to play Tank, and I still like to play Breakout on the 2600. It's a very good articulation of it.
Very cool. Any modern games that you're particularly fond of?
I have been playing a couple of games that are not really Twitch games that much, but I'd say that I like. Oh, geez, there's so many of them. I was very active playing in the the golf and the bowling and that when the Nintendo Wii. In terms of the Switch, I'd say that all of a sudden I've got a blank because there's so many.
It's a tough question, especially when you're busy and you're running through it. Yeah, I find myself just my taste for games doesn't always equate with my time commitment that I'm able to put into it. So, personally lately I've done a lot of roguelites that I can jump in, jump out, and I get a little progression that I can, save, whether it was Hades or Dead Cells or whatever in games like that. But a lot of indie games for sure.
Oh, me too.
Well, I could tell you that Nolan spends a lot of time developing and writing up games, because I get invites all the time of check out this doc, and there's he's always kind of thinking about the mechanics. Right.
How about yourself, Zai?
Oh, as a child, I played Pitfall was one from the Atari 2600, Centipede. Now I still play those things, but I use my Twitch. I like Cuphead and a couple other things.
Cuphead. I love Cuphead.
Cuphead is hard, man.
Yeah. And I play some games with my kids. They're very young, so they're really turn-based stuff. And so we hook up a projector and we use our Xbox controllers and sit back and play and stuff like that. So yeah, as much as I can. We're definitely busy with trying to develop our own stuff, and at the same time it's mostly just really about figuring out and escaping and enjoying someone else's journey is a fun thing to do as well. So
right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Not that anyone asked, but as an aside, a couple of dark horses for the 2600 for me, Berserk, because when I hit that wall and it just makes that sound, I still to this day it shivers down my spine. And for some reason, I'd love to throw on Carnival. Maybe it was an early FPS for me or something, but I love seeing the things kind of rotate around and I'm trying to shoot them like I'm at the Carnival game. So a couple of dark horses that aren't often cited from me there. Someone wanted to know, Zai, what was one of your favorite movie projects you had worked on?
Oh,
Besides Iron Man 2, they had asked.
yeah. There are iRobot. I really loved that film. I love the aesthetic, and what I was able to contribute to it. Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah,
even though it wasn't, futuristic or anything like that, because I tend to go towards the sci-fi and cars kind of thing. But I think that one was really fun to do because it challenged me outside of my comfort zone of what I could develop. So yeah.
Very cool. Someone had asked, is there any way they could give us an inclination as to what the next games are for phase 2 of the drop?
Well, that's the secret. that'll be revealed shortly after the first one.
Very cool. So there won't be a long wait for anyone that's looking forward to it.
It won't be a long wait. It just we're just going in order of, once this one is done, we'll focus on the next one. And I just want to make sure I'm doing it properly and prepare all the work for it before that announcement too. There's a lot of preparation to go into it.
Someone asked a question, and I'm not sure I can wrap my head around it entirely, but maybe you guys would understand what they're alluding to. Given that you're bit centric for media and music and talking about this movement, from atoms to bits, how do you reconcile the current model where you don't actually own music that you purchase or consume, but with these NFTs, it's about ownership and provenance and things of that nature?
I believe that it's just a stage on life's way. I believe that you will be able to own some music in the future. There's an awful lot of indie bands out there that could package a unique sound into an NFT that gives a limited number of people ownership. I think it's just, stay tuned. I'd be willing to bet it's going to happen within 12 calendar months.
Very cool. Well, guys, I've been totally geeking out on this and really enjoying myself in this interview, and I know our community has as well. So really excited that you guys are moving forward and pushing into the NFT space. Excited to see what else you have in store, and excited for this drop tomorrow on Makerspace, the Arcade OG series. It looks like it goes live at approximately 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. So everybody who's looking forward to it can mark their calendars. Be sure to head over to Makerspace. It's highlighted on the front of it, or you can go to thearcadeog.com to get more details. You guys had an awesome featurette. So before we sign off, I'd love to play that for everyone here. Anything else you'd like to say to the NFT space that's tuning in today?
You ain't seen nothing yet.
I appreciate everyone tuning in because we put a lot of work into this, and it's for you guys. We want to make sure that it's done right, and I hope people appreciate the art behind it as well as where it all came from, because it all came from Nolan's Genesis series. I was just here to help him, drive a vision, and it's awesome. So stay tuned to the next ones. Thank you, everyone.
Zai, Nolan, thank you guys so much. Best of luck tomorrow, and we're all excited to see what else you have in store for us. Have a good one.
Thank you. Good to be here. My name's Nolan Bushnell, and I'm founded Atari and I'm kind of known as the godfather of the video game business.
We've decided to partner up with Makerspace to create an exclusive NFT collection of arcade games. We're rebuilding the first two games ever made by Nolan Bushnell in a digital world. The first edition is Computer Space. The second is Pong.
My name is Zai Ortiz. I was a VFX supervisor on Iron Man and Mission Impossible and Battleship.
We're reimagining history from atoms to bits. I think it's incredible that we're giving people the opportunity to own a piece of the past and even step into an augmented world where they can actually see and feel its presence.
What I want to do is to create new. I like doing things that haven't been done before.
This is the Arcade OG series, dropping soon on Makerspace.